Now, in a rare interview, Prince Philip has been discussing modern British design and has been scathing in his condemnation of modern technology whose design alienates old people. Cars and websites came under fire, but none more so than television controls.
The whole relationship between the television set and the... I mean, you used to put it on the floor, do you remember? And then they put the controls on the bottom. So you had to lie on the floor. And then if you wanted to record something, the recorder was underneath. So you ended up lying on the floor with a torch in your teeth, magnifying glass and an instruction book. Either that or you had to employ a grandson of age 10 to do it for you.
Yeah. Well, the Duke of Edinburgh also demanded to know why TVs can't have remote handsets that people who are not 10 can understand. So does he have a point? Technological advance might make some lives easier, but is it all sometimes too complicated? Is the digital divide, in fact, a generational one, with older people being disenfranchised? This is the sort of TV that Prince Philip may have used 60 years ago, made by Bush in 1949. It's got, as you can see, just two knobs, brightness and volume. And this is a typical TV remote control from the present day, made by LG. With me now is the technology writer and futurologist Adrian Mars, and Stanley Johnson, writer, environmentalist, father of the Mayor of London. Stanley Johnson, do you have the same problem with these things?
Well, totally. My problem is not just the Duke of Edinburgh's problem. My problem is actually finding the remote before I even try and start. One of our problems is we have a Jack Russell, and the Jack Russell likes to lift his leg on the remote. So my wife and I have to hide this thing every evening, and you spend the whole of the next day trying to find out where you...
It's not quite a design point, though, is it? Which is what the Duke of Edinburgh's on about. I mean, he's saying these things alienate old people.
Well, actually, it's a practicality problem. I grew up in the country, in the depths of the country, and in order to turn the TV on in those days, you had to go out across the yard, past the cow shed, into the engine shed. You had to use the starting handle on a 4-kilowatt Lister Startomatic, and that was even before you could even begin to watch TV. So I think he's dead right.
Adrian Mars, do you have a point?
He absolutely has a point. Look at that remote.
It's a very bad piece of design.
It's a horrible piece of design. It's low contrast, so if you've got any vision problems, it's difficult. Most of the buttons are the same shape and the same size.
It's got all sorts of buttons you'll never ever use.
No, you use them once or twice to set them up, and there's no reason this sort of thing can't be hidden away in the menus. But one of the reasons for this is that these things are designed by the Far East in teams, and some of the best design is produced by talented individuals. The sort of people who, sort of one guy produces brilliant computers for Apple, for example. The other problem is that I think it's partly our fault. We're not pushing for simple-to-use products. We put up with this because it's the same as most other products, the well-designed remotes, and there are a few and far between.
Well, just take the point of car windows. I will not buy a car which has electric windows, because you spend all your time as you're driving up and down trying to get the window up and down a button. What's wrong with the old-fashioned one? You take a radio. In the old days, you just twiddle a dial. You used to get what you wanted. Now you press and press and press, and you never get what you want. So I know it sounds a bit sort of blimpish, but honestly, technology could be made a great deal simpler.
I mean, would you agree with those things? I mean, that's perhaps just a bit Luddite, isn't it? Saying I'd rather have a dial than a button on the radio.
I think there's a lot to be said for it.
I'd rather have a dial than a button. I'd rather have a hammer than a nail.
Absolutely. But well, cars, yes, I personally think winding handles are perfectly good. The problem is here there's a status issue.
You mean the crank handle?
It was the crank handle.
No, I agree with that.
But it's a status thing.
Yeah, but it's more serious than that in a way, in that we're looking at
a posh car.
We're looking at analog television signals being switched off in the coming years, people having to retune digital set-top boxes. I mean, how are pensioners going to do that?
Take broadband. Prince Charles, the Duke of... Prince Charles.
Prince Charles.
Got another title too. Wonderful article today about how broadband needed to get into the hills of Wales because the farmers can't file their VAT returns. Well, I mean, look at that. If you've got to a situation where you have to have broadband in order to file your VAT returns just when you're an ordinary milk farmer in Wales, something's gone wrong.
Do technology companies basically not care about anyone over 40, though? I mean, they deliberately target the young, don't they, because they've got the disposable wealth?
Well, the elderly have disposable wealth, but they're much harder to market to reach. They have very particular views, their own. They're a much more diverse market. If you're targeting perhaps the marketeer's ideal, maybe as a 15-year-old. They all want, if you hit that market, they want to be like each other. They buy the same shampoo, they buy the same sportswear, and if you can be that manufacturer, your marketing budget really hits pay dirt.
See, Stanley, I wonder if this would tempt you at all. Now, this is a big button remote control. We might send this one to Buckingham
Well, it
Palace.
might tempt me, because sometimes when I'm using the one I've got, you press the mute button by accident. You don't know that you've pressed the mute button, so for the whole of the rest of the evening, you can't understand why you're getting no sound. Now, sometimes, of course, it's better not to get any sound from the TV, because the program's a bit rubbish, but not always.
But look at those two things. I mean, you've basically got all the same buttons on that as you have on this. So I'm not sure this is any better designed. It's just bigger.
It would be easier for the dog to pee on.
It's got some of the design right. That for people who have difficulty operating small buttons and who have vision problems, it's very good. It hasn't gone all the way, it hasn't differentiated the button sufficiently, it doesn't ergonomically fall into the hand comfortably. So it's sort of got the low-hanging fruit, which is make big buttons with readable text. But
So Duke of Edinburgh says something everyone agrees with. Shock, I think, is the sort of the last word, isn't it? I think we'll have to leave it there. Stanley Johnson, Adrian Mars, thank you very much indeed.